Hey and welcome back to my channel. So last night I saw Spider-Man No Way Home. I wore, of course, my Spider-Man Christmas sweater as I had to do. I've never had a more perfect occasion to wear it in all these years that I've had it, so I'm wearing it again for this video. I got Spider Monkey with me right here. I'm actually gonna move him though because it's kind of hard to hold him. Anyway, today's video is going to be a very spoiler heavy, so if you haven't seen the movie, please exit this video, come back and watch it when you have seen the movie, but a very spoiler heavy review of Spider-Man No Way Home. I am honestly a huge Marvel fan, but more than that, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and Spider-Man is my favorite Avenger. I am very, I think, knowledgeable about Marvel, not just the MCU. I'm a comic book collector and I read a lot of the comics, and so I do think I know my stuff. Sorry for all the noise outdoors, by the way. Anyway, I think I know what I'm talking about, so I thought it would be fun to do this review, and I have a lot of opinions about it. First of all, I want to start off with just a few comments. Number one, this truly was a movie made for the fans. I think, Marvel tends to do that. They will make movies very much geared towards fans and what the fans want to see. But I think more than any other Marvel movie in the past, this movie truly was a movie made for the fans. And so many of the theories came true, and just everything the fans wanted, I think, for the most part, and I know there's some mixed opinions, but the fans will be very happy. There is a lot to unpack. I definitely feel like I need to see the movie at least one more time. I know I saw Into the Spider-Verse, which up until now was my favorite Spider-Man movie, 3 times in the theater, maybe even 4, I'm not sure. I saw Endgame 3 times in the theater just because of all the hype, and it's a good movie. So I definitely know that I'm going to see this movie, I would say, at least 2 more times, and it's very necessary because there's so much to unpack. Like, if I had the opportunity to, after I finish watching it, say, okay, play it again, I would have. And then the other thing is, and we'll get into all of this, but it was so surreal, seeing 3 generations of Spider-Man together. So I went to the movies with what I call my Marvel movie squad, which is my sister and my dad, and, my dad obviously grew up with, not necessarily grew up, but saw the Toby Mcguire Spider-Man movies, and I, obviously now being in college, have seen the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, but I kind of grew up in middle school, high school with the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, and then my younger sister obviously grew up with these Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, so it's kind of cool to have 3 generations of not only Spider-Mans, but also the villains, and it was just this very, what a way to introduce the multiverse, and I know it's been hinted at for a while now, WandaVision, Loki, etc., but what a way to actually, unveil the multiverse. Alright, sorry if the camera cut out. I had to stop filming for a bit. The noise got really loud and I didn't want you guys to have to go through listening to that. Anyway, I'm kind of going to go through this review in categories. So first off is going to be characters. I want to talk about MJ and Ned as one. I kind of started, I think, and anyway, let's just start again. So basically I was saying I hope it's not the end of their MCU journey. I really doubt that it is. I think Zendaya's character was kind of like, I don't want to say insignificant in the first movie. I just think she had a much smaller role, and they were setting her up for the future movies. She had a bigger role in Far From Home, and I think now in No Way Home, her character has really grown, as well as Ned's, I think. So, or as well as Ned. So I think, I really hope it's not the end of their journey. I love the scenes where they're just being kind of like normal teenagers. The scene where it's like their first day back at school for their senior year, scenes where they're talking about college, scenes where they're kind of just hanging out. MJ got a job, so they're kind of just there in the donut shop. There's the scene on the roof with them. I love those scenes. I also think Peter and MJ are just absolutely adorable. I think that their chemistry in this movie was amazing compared to the previous films. I know in the first movie, technically she wasn't really the love interest yet. That was oh my goodness, what was her name? Laura Harrier's character anyway. And I know in the second movie it was kind of like they were barely figuring out if they liked each other and whatnot, and they were kind of awkward. But I think in this movie, and maybe that has to do with Tom Holland and Zendaya's relationship in real life, their chemistry was just amazing and it made it so adorable. I also did love though the scenes where Ned kind of like third wheeled on them and kind of interrupted them, and those scenes were great. I do have to say, not only does her role get bigger each film, but MJ, her character gets better in each film. Honestly, in the first film, I know she was only in it for like 2 minutes, but I did not like her character very much. And in the second film, I started to like her more. In this film, I truly loved her character. So I think her character grows with each film, and I really would love to see where she goes in the future. Hopefully, if she's still in the MCU. I love the scene in Ned's house. I love that we got to see a little bit more of him, and also MJ, just like aside from Spider-Man. And I know that technically they were still on Spider-Man missions, but at least they weren't like with him. I like that. I loved Ned's Lola, his grandmother, speaking Filipino, and just that nod to his heritage. Very cool. One thing I noticed about MJ was they call her, the scene when they're interrogating her about Peter Parker, they're like, I think they call her, Michelle Watson, and she says, I don't go by Watson, I go by Jones. Obviously, if you know the comics or the previous films and just in general, Mary Jane, her last name is Watson, so it is kind of a confirmation. I think since the last movie we knew she was MJ, but this kind of just confirms she is not only just is that her name, but she is like, I guess, this universe's version of Mary Jane. And who knows, if she doesn't go by Watson anymore, now she goes by Jones, maybe Michelle is also a different name. Maybe she was Mary Jane or something. I don't know. Very interesting. I'd also love the backstory of why she doesn't go by Watson anymore. I clearly think there's got to be some kind of story there. And then the next question I have, and I'm sorry again for the noise. I'm going to try to keep going. Hopefully the noise doesn't get too much in the way. But the next question I have is about Ned, and does he have powers? Does he have magic? Obviously, we saw him opening portals. Now, was that just because of Doctor Strange's ring, or was there something more to that? I think it's hinting at possibly a hero arc, or maybe even a villain arc. We did get that hint at like when they're saying about how Norman Osborn was the best friend of which was it, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man? I know it was both, but I think it was Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man that Ned asks, and he's like, oh, so did you have a best friend? He's like, yeah, he tried to kill me. And so I think it'd be interesting to see Ned as a villain or even a hero in future movies. Maybe an appearance in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? Who knows? The next character I'm going to talk about is May. First of all, Aunt May. I'm glad that she broke up with Happy. I thought that was a very random, kind of weird thing in the second movie. It almost just felt like an excuse for Happy to be in the second movie or to be more present in the second movie. But I'm glad that wasn't like a serious thing. I like that they had kind of a friendship going still though, because I didn't want like that kind of bridge to break completely. I just didn't like them together. I love the connection that she had with Peter in this movie. I think in this movie we saw that like kind of mother-son relationship more than in the previous films, which is really nice. I love with great power comes great responsibility, because honestly I was worried in other films, Infinity War, even Civil War, Endgame, in the first Spider-Man film, I was kind of worried that Tony Stark would be the one to deliver the line, and I think it was just much more powerful coming from May. In this universe, she is kind of like our Uncle Ben. Obviously, as far as we know, there was an Uncle Ben in this universe, but he wasn't part of the actual like film plots. So she's like our Uncle Ben, and I love that she delivered the line. And I also love that we finally did get the line. That was I think it was good though they waited this long, but I'm glad that we finally did get it. One thing I'll say though is that from each film, even beginning in Civil War, her character almost feels a little inconsistent to me. I don't know, like, it feels, I can't really put it into words, but it feels like it's not the same personality from film to film. Like, last film we got a little hint of her excuse me, being like the moral compass and whatnot, but this film, it almost seemed like that was her sole like purpose, even aside from Spider-Man, just like she was the moral compass. And I feel like that wasn't really a thing of her character before, and just other little things. But not a complaint, just an observation. Next, I want to talk about all the villains, and I'll just talk about them as one very quickly. First of all, they all had great moments, but they were used in press for the film, and they were heavily used to promote the film. Obviously, they weren't going to use Andrew Garfield and Toby Mcguire Spider-Mans to promote the film because they wanted it to be a surprise, but they promoted the villains a lot, and I feel like they just deserved more screen time. They did get good moments, good scenes, great scenes, and I know the movie was long, and in order to add more scenes it would have had to be longer, because personally I wouldn't have removed any scenes. I just kind of wish we had gotten, you know, a little bit more from each villain. I enjoyed the villain redemption. It felt like everyone in this film, maybe with the exception of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which is really ironic if you think about it, got their like redemption moment, their full circle moment. That includes the villains, and it's kind of cool to see that kind of the kind of gray area between good and bad, and they're neither bad nor good. They're just had unfortunate situations, I guess. Again, sorry for the noise. I'm gonna keep saying that throughout this video. Anyway, Doc Ock, visually in this movie was great. Made a lot of sense in terms of the movie, but visually, I don't know if it's the CGI, I don't know if it's that I haven't seen him in a long time, obviously, since Toby Mcguire's Spider-Man movies, but visually, I loved Doc Ock in this movie. I especially loved when he helped save the day at the end of the movie. I thought that was great redemption, like I said, very full circle. I loved it. I also love the scene where he first appears. He's the first villain we kind of see. That was a great scene. Green Goblin, I hate what he did to Aunt May, but I also understand it to a certain extent. I feel like, and I'll get into this later, but this Spider-Man has had the most tragedy out of all three, and I feel like this tragedy was necessary just to move the character along and kind of give us this different version of Spider-Man. So I think May needed to die, and, you know, it's unfortunate that the Green Goblin did it, but I think it was very much just part of this, like, full circle moment. He was like the original Spider-Man villain in terms of the films, so it's very fitting that if one of the villains was going to kill May, it would be him. Sandman, all I can say is morally he was better than the other villains. Not much to say about him. I do like that he just wanted to get back to his family, you know. The Lizard did definitely not get enough of a story. You know, he was kind of poorly written. We all agree the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies were poorly written. Nothing towards Andrew Garfield or any of that cast. But I do wish he had more of a story in this film. And then Electro is just another great example of the just gray line between good and bad, and how these villains kind of struggled with that. And also Jamie Foxx, I feel like he fit well into the MCU compared to some of the other villains. He's kind of more of like an MCU style villain, if that makes sense. Next, I'm going to go over each Spider-Man. I'm going to start with Toby Mcguire. Let's go with the original. I love that they acknowledged his lack of web shooters, for one. That's always been kind of something talked about in terms of when comparing the three Spider-Mans. I love that they acknowledge that. I love also the signs of him being like a more aged Spider-Man. Clearly he's the original, so it makes sense that, you know, he's older, and there's that scene where he's talking about his back pain, and then also him kind of being a mentor to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, kind of just showing like his wisdom with age and his experience being Spider-Man. And then also just the fact that when we first see him, he's not wearing the suit. I don't necessarily think, I mean, we don't know what's happening in his universe. I would like to believe he's not retired, nor he never mentions that he is. But I like to think that way less than maybe Andrew Garfield Spider-Man or Tom Holland Spider-Man, we see him kind of maybe dialing back, maybe headed towards retiring as Spider-Man. Who knows? But I kind of think it's interesting that he's not wearing the suit when we first see him. Also, that scene where he gets stabbed, I really thought they were going to kill him. I was like, you can't kill Aunt May and Toby Mcguire Spider-Man. I was like, what is happening? I was like, not another Tony Stark moment or another Black Widow moment. I was so glad that he was okay. Yeah, I thought the stabbing was unnecessary, but I know what they were doing. They wanted us to think he was dead, and I think the whole theater, and really throughout this whole movie, the theater was so reactive. I haven't seen an audience like that since Endgame, but everybody was like in shock at that moment. Next, of course, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. First of all, when he came on the screen, I lost it. I love that man as Spider-Man. Like, I know it was written poorly, but like, I wish they had done better for him. It's kind of like, I love Logan Lerman as Percy Jackson, though he was a little old to play the part, but Percy Jackson was written so poorly. It's like, I don't blame you, I blame the writers. Anyway, I lost it when he came on screen, though. The whole theater lost it, but I wish you could have seen my live reaction. I love, there was this scene where it's kind of when they're all bonding right before the big fight scene at the end, and Toby Mcguire's Spider-Man tells Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, you are amazing, you're amazing. He keeps saying amazing, and obviously we know that Andrew Garfield Spider-Man is the amazing Spider-Man. Just like in the comics, there's different versions of Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield is the amazing Spider-Man. So I like that they kind of give a nod to that without being too like, oh, I'm the amazing Spider-Man or something, you know? Here's what good writing can do. I really liked him as Peter Parker in this movie. I've always liked him as Spider-Man, but as Peter Parker, I felt like that's where they fell short. But in this movie, and I think it genuinely had to do with the writing, and it's never been Andrew Garfield's fault. I think it was just the writing, like I said. But I feel like it was written so great that I wish that's how he had acted as Peter Parker in his films. But I really did love it. And then, of course, it was predictable from the moment everyone saw the trailer. People were guessing it. But I love that redemption moment where he saves MJ. It was so emotional. And Andrew Garfield as an actor, just the emotion in that scene that he showed was amazing. And I love that he got that redemption. That scene where Gwen dies at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2 kills me every time. Like, truly a scene that traumatized me forever. So I'm glad that he got that redemption. Next, let's talk about Tom Holland Spider-Man. I'll definitely say in terms of the 3 Spider-Mans, he has been through the most trauma. Aunt May dying, Tony Stark dying, Uncle Ben presumably dying as far as we know, Ned and MJ forgetting who he is. He literally lost everyone he knows. I mean, even Doctor Strange, anyone who's taken on this position as a mentor to him, even Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and Toby Mcguire Spider-Man having to go to their respective universes. He's literally left with no one. So I definitely would love to see his character arc in the future of the MCU. I'm pretty sure he's returning to the MCU. I think it would be crazy to not have him return for more movies. I know we're not sure if there's going to be more Spider-Man movies, but we do know that Tom Holland Spider-Man will return at least in some of the future like team up movies. So I think it'll be very interesting. I think his character could go one of 2 ways. Either he is going to be like morally good and everything that Aunt May wanted him to be, especially after the guidance he got in this movie from the other 2 Spider-Mans, or now kind of being on his own. In this film, you know, he had MJ, he had Ned, he had Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and Toby Mcguire Spider-Man. For part of the movie, he had May. But I think maybe possibly now without all those people, he could go dark and kind of villainous, and that would be really fun and something we haven't seen from Spider-Man. Also, let's see. Oh, and he has no more Stark technology or Avengers. So, it's going to be interesting to see how he copes, how he deals as Spider-Man without all the help he's got in the past. It's kind of almost going to be like a new Spider-Man origin story where he kind of, we've always seen Peter Parker kind of having to figure things out on his own, which this particular Peter Parker didn't. He had Stark technology and all these mentors and stuff, but now without that, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Also, I just think Tom Holland, specifically in this film, is an incredible actor. He got the comedic timing for all the jokes, but then these emotional scenes, specifically like when Aunt May died, and at the end of the movie when he's fighting Green Goblin, that emotion, like, it felt real, it felt realistic, believable. So yeah, like 10 out of 10 in terms of acting. The next kind of category I want to go over is some of the Spider-Man suits. First of all, I thought the Inside Out suit was really interesting. So I saw an interview, and I don't remember the scene in Spider-Man Homecoming, but apparently in that film, there was actually a shot of the inside of the suit. So they thought it'd be fun to kind of give a nod to that and actually have him wear the suit inside out. So yeah, that was interesting. I like that. Kind of a weird suit though, honestly, but I get it. It was more of a nod to the first film, full circle moment kind of thing, and then kind of for comedy purposes because the other side of the suit got dirty. And then there's also, of course, the Iron Spider suit. I like the Iron Spider suit. I don't hate it, but I don't know. It's always felt too techy for Spider-Man. It's just, Spider-Man, he's supposed to be this kid that kind of made his suit on his own and is figuring things out. It was too techy. Like I said, now we know in the future of the MCU, he's not going to have all this dark technology and stuff. So we'll see what happens. And then the new suit at the end of the movie that we kind of just get a glimpse of that he's making, that one looks very comic book accurate to me. Clearly, if he made a new suit, he's coming back, so I can't wait to see that suit. And I think it'll kind of be very, like, just classic Spider-Man, so I'm very excited for that. The next thing I'm going to talk about is some of my favorite scenes. So my first favorite scene, and of course, how could it not be, is, first of all, the moment that Andrew Garfield Spider-Man comes on screen. We think it's Tom Holland Spider-Man, at least for a quick second, until we're like, wait a minute. And that moment was like insane. And then of course in that same scene when Toby Mcguire Spider-Man comes out, and it's like, oh my gosh. Obviously by that point we were already expecting it, but it was still like pretty awesome. And then when they kind of meet, and then MJ and Ned kind of like, what's going on? I also love when MJ's like throwing the bread at Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, and she's kind of like, prove that you're Spider-Man. And I also love how they kind of, when they both meet MJ and Ned, they kind of say the same things, and it just shows like how even though they have like different universes and different stories, they're still Spider-Man and they're pretty similar, let's see. Oh, I love when the three Spider-Mans meet for the first time. So this is like when they meet Tom Holland Spider-Man. I love that they convince him to do the right thing, and they talk about Uncle Ben and Gwen. Tears. So yeah, I really love that moment. It's awesome to see the three on screen for the first time. It was like just seeing Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and Toby Mcguire Spider-Man together was like, but then when you see all three, it's like insane. I love the moment later on when they're bonding. We have that moment when they're kind of, Tom Holland Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man are questioning Toby Mcguire Spider-Man about not having web shooters and how that works, and it's really funny. And then that part where, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man's like, I've never fought an alien, because Toby Mcguire Spider-Man mentions Venom, who he doesn't say Venom, but Venom. And then Tom Holland Spider-Man mentions Thanos. Again, he doesn't say Thanos, but Thanos. So he's like, wait, I've never fought an alien. And then that's right after that is when they keep calling him amazing. And then this is actually a little bit later on, but I'm still going to kind of consider it like the same scene, is when Tom Holland Spider-Man is like, I'm an Avenger, and he thinks it's like the coolest thing, and the other two are like, what is that? And Andrew Garfield Spider-Man is like, is that like a band? Which is kind of funny. And in terms of like multiverses, I mean, clearly there's other universes with Avengers, assumingly, but it's kind of funny how this universe was very much the Avengers universe, even right down to, which I hated, by the way, but the Statue of Liberty having the Captain America shield. I don't know why I hated that so much. It just kind of, And yes, I get it, there's superheroes and multiverses and magic. It's not realistic, but it kind of, them kind of altering a real life monument like that just kind of took away like a lot more of the realism. Anyway, that's just a picky thing, but I did love that scene. I love the scene where they're all in the lab trying to create the cures for the villains. I love that MJ and Ned are there. I love when MJ calls Peter and they all three turn, and then or was it Ned? No, I think it was MJ that called Peter. And they all three turned, and they're all named Peter Parker, and there's like really no way to, it's kind of, I don't know, funny scene. It very much is like that Spider-Man pointing meme, you know what I'm talking about? And then also where Ned is kind of like telling Tom Holland Spider-Man or Peter Parker, like, I don't want to kill you, and he's very confused, and obviously they're referring to Norman Osborn, but that's kind of a fun thing. And my last kind of favorite scene, though I love the whole movie, was right before Aunt May died, which like tore me to pieces, by the way, but it's when she gives that "with great power comes great responsibility" line, and just like her kind of giving her last advice to Peter, and also just she was like so brave in that moment, like where she's trying to cure the Green Goblin instead of, she had the opportunity to run away, but she does the right thing, and that was kind of just a cool scene. Some general comments, Snags. I could not sum this movie up into general comments. General comment number 1, I need to go see this movie 10 more times. General comment number 2, it was comedic, it was sad, it was nostalgic, it was emotional. It was an emotional roller coaster. What can I say? I felt all the feels. I don't think a movie has made me feel like that in so long. I actually almost cried. I never cry at movies, and I still didn't cry, but I almost cried. I laughed out loud. I screamed and gasped, and I was like literally, especially when Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man came out, I was like, what's happening? Anyway, I both hate and love the ending. Obviously, I hate that, after everything that happened, after everything that Tom Holland's Peter Parker lost, he then kind of, in a way, not really, but he loses Ned and MJ, which is kind of sad, but I feel like he'll eventually reunite with them, even though he kind of had that chance and he didn't. But I love also that he kind of didn't try to confuse them or change their lives. He finally saw them living normal and happy and talking about going to MIT, which is what they wanted and stuff. So he kind of just let them be. So I both loved and hated the ending, basically. I do have some post-movie questions as well. First of all, the big one, what is the future of Spider-Man in the MCU? I think he'll be back. I think I'm almost certain it's been confirmed. But I'm just curious how so. Not even like the other Avengers remember him anymore. So it's gonna be interesting. I'll say that. My other question is, what do people know about Spider-Man? I'm very confused. It's kind of like after Endgame, after the blip, I had many questions. Now I have a lot of questions about what they know and don't know about Spider-Man. So like Happy recalls Spider-Man, and he says that he knew May through Spider-Man. So I guess my question is, did everything still happen, just they don't know it was Peter Parker? Or what's the situation there? How does that work? Because theoretically then he could still be part of the Avengers and stuff, just not as Peter Parker, only as Spider-Man. I need to know what happened. I'm a little confused on that. I also need to know, how were the other universes affected? Obviously, assuming the villains didn't die and they were cured and whatnot. So does that mean, for example, a lot of these battle scenes didn't happen? Is Gwen alive? What is happening? I need to know. I wish, not only do I want another MCU or Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, but I need another Andrew Garfield and another Toby Mcguire Spider-Man movie in their universes that tells me what happened. Please, somebody tell me. And then my last question is just not as important as the rest, but is Peter going to MIT? Did he get in? Assuming he still applied. Actually, I guess not, because he had that GED book at the end of the film. Maybe he's going to try to go to MIT. Maybe that's going to be where maybe something will happen and MJ and Ned will remember him. I don't know. Many questions. The last thing I want to talk about is just all the connections to other MCU films and characters. let's go in order, I guess. First of all, we have Daredevil. Honestly, I'm sorry, I haven't seen Daredevil. I've seen everything MCU, and I have seen several of the what used to be Marvel Television Studios shows, but I haven't seen Daredevil. But I am excited because this, to me, proves now that the characters from the Netflix series, from the ABC series, from Hulu, Runaways, I love you still, even though not everyone does, now have the potential to cross into the MCU, which is very exciting. I think larger Cloak and Dagger as well, very exciting. So I want to see which of these characters are going to join the MCU, and I love that. Next is Venom 3. So we saw, obviously, Venom was sent back to his respective universe, but a piece of the symbiote was left behind. So is there going to be a new Venom, like a Spider-Man MCU version of Venom? Because that would be so fun to see. So I'm curious. Venom 3? Is Venom 3 going to have two Venoms? Multiverse crossing kind of situation? Is Venom 3 going to be completely separate from these previous? I don't know. I need to know. Doctor Strange, we saw that teaser trailer at the end. I was very excited. I've never seen Marvel use an end credit scene as like a teaser trailer, so that was very fun. It's coming in May. It's rumored to have a lot of cameos, multiverse related cameos as well, which is where I think we could get some of these characters. For example, something I would love to see, highly unlikely, but Nico Minoru from Runaways. She's a witch. She deals with magic. I would love to see her make a cameo or some kind of appearance in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Also, I love just how seamlessly this particular phase of the MCU has connected everything. Like, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is connected to Spider-Man, which is connected to Daredevil, which is connected to Hawkeye, and all of them are connected to WandaVision, which is, the connections are endless. Loki, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like this phase, literally like Black Widow, Yelena as Black Widow, connected to Hawkeye, connected to Spider-Man, connected to Doctor Strange, insane. And then mild spoilers ahead for Hawkeye. If you have not seen it, I'm warning you now. We know that Kingpin from the Daredevil universe is in Hawkeye. So there's that little connection, Daredevil, Hawkeye, Spider-Man, Kingpin. And then we also know that Kingpin is a major Spider-Man villain. So fingers crossed, though I really doubt it, that we get some kind of at least mention or cameo of Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the last episode of Hawkeye next week. But I definitely think there'll be some kind of connection there. And then also, I'm a little iffy on the timeline. Based on my calculations, I'm almost certain that the events of Hawkeye are happening at the same time as the events of Spider-Man, and if that's so, they're both happening in New York. And I don't know how and Kingpin is involved, which is a Spider-Man villain, but he's involved in Hawkeye. So there's got to be a connection, like a major connection there. My other calculations say the Hawkeye events might be 1 year after the Spider-Man events, but I'm not too sure. I'm very iffy on that timeline. So yeah, but anyway, final rating, 1 million out of 10. Love the movie, gonna go see it again for sure at some point. Make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Comment down below if you've already seen Spider-Man, what you thought of it. I hope you've already seen it, or I just spoiled the whole thing for you. I did give a spoiler warning though. And yeah, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I post a video. Don't forget, new videos every single day in December. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!